Okay, we are live. We are live. Okay, welcome. How's everyone doing? Good to see you. Okay, we want to dedicate class to Rav Zalman Notik. It's his Yortzeit tonight, and his Neshama should have an Aliyah. Okay, we are now on the 19th class of the Sefer Yetzirah. I don't know if the screen's blurry or it's my eyes or my glasses or a combination of all of them, but something doesn't seem like it's clear. So whatever. All right, let's start. We are in the middle of we are in chapter 1, subsection 3, and we're talking about the circumcisions, the covenant that God made with Abraham and with all of his offspring, the Jewish people, which is precisely in the middle, we said, and it's the circumcision of the tongue and of the brit, of the membrum, of the member, as we call it. Also, as we spoke about, there is a circumcision of the heart as well, that is not derived or brought out in the Sefer Yetzirah as of now. But we spoke about the reason for that, presumably last class. But so let's hop right back in and get into the text. So we are now, we discussed last class the circumcision of the tongue, and now we're going to do circumcision of the membrum. And I got a new Wi-Fi extender, so hopefully we won't have the class shut off anymore. Hashem. Okay, circumcision of the membrum. Just as the fingers of the two hands represent the 10 sefirot, so do the toes of the 2 feet. Between the legs is a circumcision of the sexual organ, the membrum, which, if you kind of just look at the human body, you have the hands represent the sefirot, the toes represent the sefirot, and then the brit in the middle also represents the circumcision, the covenant. So we see again, we spoke last week at length about the masculine and feminine energy and the importance of channeling this energy and balancing this energy. And when these two energies are balanced together, it creates a tremendous amount of power or energy. We spoke a little bit about the cheruvim outside the Ark of the Testimony, which also represented this masculine and feminine energy. And it said that is basically where prophecy came from. And prophecy is when you have this tremendous, you would call it a pipe of energy between above and below, where you're able to communicate with God and through God, all through these covenants. These covenants enable, as we spoke about last time, it's, if you look at the member, it's exactly in the left side. We were at this reminds me, we were at a bris on Sunday, and the moil's about to get started. And one of the guys, he's one of our center guys, I don't want to say the name of, but he said to the moil, he said, "Hey, are you gonna do him like you did me? To this day, I still pee on my left leg." He said, he said, "You circumcised me a little to the left, and I'm still peeing on my left leg to this day." I got a pretty good chuckle at it. Anyways, but the idea is everything's supposed to be directly in the middle, right? We have a right hand and a left hand, right foot and a left foot, and the reproductive organ is in the middle. And again, it shows the importance of channeling this energy, of really pulling two opposites. And it's representative of pretty much everything in Judaism, right? The energy that manifests between physical and spiritual, that's what the Torah is. The Torah is to draw down godly energy from above the spiritual worlds into the physical world and elevate the physical energy from below to above. Everything is connected to masculine and feminine energy, physical and spiritual. And the goal is that it should be balanced, right? We know when there's a relationship, not just between a husband and wife, but between us and God, the points, which is tiferet, which is beauty, which is the balancing point, is when you disappear into God and God disappears into you, and you kind of have a state of oneness, which you're in a state of flow, where there's no longer an abrasive relationship where you're struggling with God, right? We spoke a little bit about this as the struggle between between our forefathers, Yaakov and Esav. When you're in a state of a struggle or a war state, that means things aren't balanced. Once they become in a state of balance, they become in a state of flow, and it's no longer a battle. It's an energy flow, and that is where all the power comes from. That's where all the energy comes from. That's where your abilities to transcend this world come from. So let's continue inside. We're on page 37 in the English text. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nidbareh. In order to understand the significance of the circumcision, one must realize why God commanded that it be done on the 8th day. The Torah states on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin will be circumcised. The covenant of circumcision was originally given to Abraham, which Hashgacha Pratis we learned about in this week's Torah portion. We're learning about right now. Discussing this, this covenant, this circumcision. So the world was created in 6 days, representing the 6 primary directions that exist in the 3-dimensional physical universe, as we've spoken about before. That's east, west, north, south, and up and down. The 7th day, Shabbat, is the perfection of the physical world. And it represents the focal point of these 6 directions, as discussed below. The 8th day then represents a step above the physical into the realm of the transcendental. So, yeah, it kind of speaks for itself, right? The Shabbat is the balancing point. It's the place of peace, right? That's why we greet one another on Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Because Shalom, peace, is when things are balanced, when you have a center point, when you're not pulled in multiple directions. And all week long, we're pulled in a different direction, right? The first day of the week, Yom Rishon, Sunday in the English vernacular, is Chesed. Second day, Yom Sheni, Monday, is Gevurah. And each day, you're representing 2 opposite energies in the 6 directions in the physical universe. When Shabbat comes, you have peace because you reach that middle point. And from there, you could reach to the next stage, which is transcendental, which is what we say is above nature, if you will. You can't transcend nature until you reach a place of balance within nature. So, you know, there's a saying, you know, basically, you know, God creates miracles for us when we've exhausted all our capabilities within the nature. God does not like to just, you know, throw things where we just sit down on the couch and he just throws things at us. He wants to see us working. And I don't mean working what we do for a living to pay our bills. I mean working the tzimtzum. That's the main work of a Jew, is to work against the tzimtzum, to try to uncover God while he's concealed in the world. And that's why Shabbat, we rest. We're not necessarily resting from our 9-to-5 jobs, although we do. We're resting from the heavy work of trying to reveal God in our day-to-day lives, in our relationships with our families, at our work, with our neighbors, with our communities. It's work because God conceals himself. So the ultimate work throughout the week is to reveal God. And Shabbat comes and we reap the benefits of the week of the work we did. We kind of refill our tank. And once you get to this place of balance, you can now transcend the normal natural order and enter into what we say is transcendental or miraculous or above the nature realms, which is characterized by the number 8. You see the number 8, you know, if you flip it on its side, is an infinity sign, right? You know, in this infinity sign, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going because it's limits. It ain't self, no limitations. So it says, through the covenant of circumcision, God gave Abraham and his descendants power over the transcendental plane. Very interesting. The most obvious case in which this occurs is in conception, bringing children into the world, where a soul is brought down into the world. Since the mark of the covenant is on the reproductive organ, it gives the individual access to the highest spiritual realms from which he can draw the most lofty souls. There's something that's completely miraculous about bringing children into the world. A lot of people take it for granted. They don't think about it. There's a whole series. I've not taken the time to watch it, but I've heard about it and I've glimpsed at it. There's a whole series on YouTube of hours and hours of videos where I don't know who was behind the video series, but basically what they did is they sat down with atheist people who did not believe in God, or antagonist people who are against God. And they didn't mention God at all. They just walked them through step by step, scientifically, what it takes for a man and a woman to conceive and give birth to a child. And the process, according to science, of how the man's sperm enters into the woman's egg and it fertilizes it. And they went through like the process of a child developing inside of a womb and the 9 months of gestation of the different features of the child developing up until the woman gives birth. And after going through this detailed explanation of this process, every single person started to believe in God without mentioning God, just showing how miraculous it is to create life, that it's a partnership between man, woman, and God. And you can't do it without man, you can't do it without woman, hello, and you can't do it without God. And that's what the Sefer Yetzirah is discussing right now, this concept of drawing down a soul from the upper worlds into a physical body. Here, we're on page 37. Into a physical body. And that is something that's above nature. Although there is scientific explanations for how a child is born and conceived, it really is a miraculous event. And that's why we see the covenant that connects us to worlds above this world is specifically in the sexual organ. It's known that women come pre-circumcised.
Last question about Shabbat.
Sure.
You mentioned that the 6th day, and then 7, and now you're talking about the
8, yeah.
If Shabbat is so amazing, if someone feel like Shabbat is boring or hard to observe, is it mean that something in the 6 days of this balancing of those sefirot, we didn't do the right work? What happened there? Because Shabbat's supposed to be for us. I'm talking about myself.
Yeah.
I don't get the advantage of it. I don't get it. Is it mean that something in the 6 days I'm doing wrong?
It's a good question. So the question is, if Shabbat is the balancing, the 7th day, which brings all these different energies of the 6 directions into a state of oneness, and so when Shabbat is boring, it's uneventful, people don't want to keep Shabbat, there's no joy in Shabbat, doesn't mean that the 6 days preceding Shabbat are defective. So there are multiple reasons why people don't enjoy Shabbat. The biggest one are, for the most part, is we deal a lot with people who are born or raised in observant homes where Shabbat was not something that was introduced or brought into a state of blessing or enjoyment, but as a burden thing of don't do this, don't do that, you can't do this, you can't do this. And so it becomes something that's very, very restrictive and something that maybe people are not feeling the benefit of it from. But, to answer your question more directly, it is. In other words, look at Shabbat this way. Shabbat, you are refueling your spiritual tank, your spiritual energy from the work you've done throughout the 6 days that precede Shabbat. So it's a combination of things. And I think there is a big... Hello, how are you? I can tell you, could you give her out one of these papers here? We're on page 37. There's a big disconnect between what Shabbat really is and what work really is. And that's what we spoke about a minute ago, is especially here in America or even in Israel, Shabbat, people think it's a day of rest from working, that I don't have to go to the office. I don't have to whatever my job may be throughout the work week, I don't have to do it. But you don't have to do it on Sunday either. That doesn't make it Shabbat. So the real work, again, of a Jew is to reveal God in this world. Religion is just a horrible term. It came after the fact. Judaism is not so much religion as the fact that God is concealed. Up in the upper worlds, every single soul acknowledges God. Every single angel praises God. There's no entity that exists in the spiritual world that does not, every moment of every day, worship and praise God for being alive and the beauty and the glory of God. But when the soul comes down into this physical world, we get disconnected from it, and God is hidden in this world, and we're stuck with a lot of temptations and a lot of challenges and a lot of difficulties. But the main work of why we're here is to reveal God in a world that conceals him, right? The Hebrew word for concealing is helem, and for world is ha'olam. It's the same root. This is a world of concealment. So how do we reveal them? Through the three pillars the world is standing on: Torah, Tefillah, Gemut Chasidim. Torah, prayer, and good deeds. So if our intention is proper, how it's supposed to be, we wake up in the morning, and when we say the morning blessings and we say Modeh Ani, what are we doing? We're thanking God, saying, thank you, God, for believing in me and trusting in me and putting my soul back in my body for a new day to try to reveal you in this world. That's really what it's about. The enjoyment of the world, the family, the friends, the relationships, the all those things, the work, the vacations, that's all bonus that God kind of sprinkles on us. So if our focus is not on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis on our real work, when Shabbat comes, it's just another day. Make sense? When our focus is on a day-to-day of, it's hard, there's darkness in the world, how do I bring light, how do I reveal it? And then when Shabbat comes, the world is no longer moving, it's at rest. So now we reap the benefits of our hard work throughout the week. It's if we're properly in tune in a spiritual perspective, and we really put effort throughout the week. We did something with Mesirus Nefesh. We went out of our way to help another person. We pushed ourselves to daven when we didn't feel like daven. We had an opportunity to eat non-kosher food. We're really working it on Shabbat. If we're spiritually sensitive, we feel an elevation, because that's exactly what happens. Every Shabbat, God elevates the whole world and each one of our souls based on our work down here. And the amount of energy we put for it's like a gas tank. If you drive a lot during the week and then you have to fill up your gas, okay, there's a lot of gas to put in there. If you don't drive at all during the week, oh, my tank is already full. I don't have to do anything. So Shabbat is really a replenishment. It's like a mini Rosh Chodesh and a mini Rosh Hashanah. It's a whole new energy. So yeah, everything comes down to your intentions. And if your intentions are the way they're meant to be, then when Shabbat comes, it's a tremendous enjoyment. If every day is just like the day before and the day after, and you're just kind of floating through the world without intention or purpose, then it probably just feels like another day. Okay. So, no, it's okay. So it says, by meditating on the fact, I'm in the middle of page 37, that the 10 toes represent the 10 sefirot, one is able to concentrate spiritual energy into the sexual organ. By the way, women come circumcised. I don't know how to say this without getting into like graphic sexual education class, and I'm not going to do it because there's women here. But generally speaking, the if you look at the bris, everything is about the middle column, right? So the energy between the hands, this is we talked about the Birkas Kohanim. The energy, you put your hands like this, and the energy channels right in the channel between both of the hands. The same thing with your toes when they're aligned. Maybe it's going to talk about this in a minute, about how the Makublim, but oh yeah, it's going to talk about it, would channel other energy to create upper worlds and words in the upper worlds. So the energy is all about balancing that energy. So you see that after circumcision, and it reveals the middle part of the member is aligned. A woman's reproductive organ, it's also aligned. It could have been many different. So everything represents this middle line. Everything's about channeling the energy to the middle. So a man has to reveal that. A woman, it's already inside. They're by nature come from a higher spiritual source than a man does. So through such methods, one can gain complete control over one's sexual activities, even in the midst of intercourse. By sanctifying oneself in this matter during sexual intercourse, one is able to determine the qualities of the child that will be conceived. Pretty wild stuff. But holy people, Makublim, people who study the mystical aspects of the Torah, understand that when a man and a woman are together, married in a proper time, that relationship together is, yeah, it's about bringing children into the world, but that's secondary. The highest point of a man and a woman coming together, which is why Friday night is the main time for a man and woman to come together, because it's Shabbat, when everything reconnects, is to reconnect to God. Because a man and a woman were one before they came into this world. God split Adam and Chava in two, but the true nature is oneness. And the way to reestablish that nature, once one soul is split into two bodies, How do you reunite it in sexual union? And during that process, if the intentions are proper, as he's saying right now, and the energy is focused using Kabbalistic tools like we're talking about now between the fingers and the toes, and one's intentions are bringing down a high, lofty soul, then that is what will result of it. And we have the opposite. And, kids running around the house, so. But it says in the Gemara, yeah, you have a question? Yeah. It's okay. No, it's okay. No one can see you. They see me. Ask. Okay. And the opposite is true as well. In the Gemara, it speaks about that if someone is, God forbid, thinking about another person or having impure thoughts, different negative traits can come to the children. They could be wild. They can have. There's many different traits that come down to a child based on the intentions of a husband and woman when they're together. How many couples have proper intentions during relations? It's probably not a lot. I don't know how many people know this information. I don't know if people are aware of it or even care. So you're talking about lofty levels, but people who are in this state of awareness, they do focus their energy on such things because they want to bring holy souls. I don't know. That's Alavai. Uh-huh.
Which one? Who? You're talking about Saddam, right?
Yeah, she came from unholy, unpure.
Yeah, good point. So,
She didn't have.
so did the soul of Mashiach, came from an improper relationship. So there's the Tanya explains. We always have to understand in life, you have the rule and you have the exception, right? You have the general rule of how things work, and then there's always exceptions to the rule. That doesn't mean that we look at the exception and say, well, look at this situation, so every situation is possibly like that. In the Tanya, it explains that often God needs to bring very lofty souls into the world, and he can't bring them down because the Satan doesn't want them coming into the world because he doesn't want them doing good. So he specifically hides them in impure relations, impure homes, and sometimes the loftiest souls are born out of marital unions that are the complete opposite of what bring down lofty souls. In order to bring that soul into the world, God has to kind of like camouflage it or conceal it inside. So it doesn't mean that it's not possible for holy souls to come down in an improper relation, but the general idea of how to bring them down is by focusing on this proper energy. So the covenant of circumcision also represents the channeling of sexual energy. The sexual drive is one of the most powerful psychological forces in man. And when it is channeled along spiritual lines, it can help bring one to the highest mystical states. In giving the commandment of circumcision, God indicated that the emotions and desires associated with relations could be used for the mystical quest of the divine on a transcendental plane. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. What does it mean by that? That there are stories of, how are you? Want to follow along? It's page 37 in here. Of various prophets that once they received prophecy, they separated from their wives. Moshe Rabbeinu, there are stories like this of very, very lofty people, because their mission was something that was higher. And the idea is that it is this energy we're talking about, sexual energy, is the most powerful energy available. Period. There are multiple. Here, you want to pass some of those down? We're on page 37 if anyone wants to follow along. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Tantra. Have you heard of what Tantra is? Have you heard of the term Tantra? Okay. So Tantra is a mystical sexual practice in the Far East that is, they used to, through relations, not talking about godly or holy, just spiritual, achieve very high transcendental levels of spiritual energy through sexual relations, and different forms and different cantillations and things that are going on through this. There is evidence to believe that the mystics from thousands of years ago had the ability to do this with their wives, where they were able in relations to reach very, very, very high spiritual levels. It's a very deep subject that possibly we could explore in another class, because there's a lot to unpack and a lot to go through it. But the most physical act in a proper way can be transcended into the holiest thing, because that's how God likes to roll. He likes to mix together complete opposite realities. And the most physical and the most spiritual, you can't, Adam, look at the name Adam, right? Adam, the first man, it's Aleph Dam. Dam is blood. Aleph is Aluf Shalom, God. God took man from the lowest dirt physical coarseness of the world and put the highest divine soul inside. Two complete opposite realities. Every Jew has two complete opposite realities inside us. We have an animal soul and we have a godly soul that are at war. The godly soul wants nothing but to connect to God, and the animal soul wants nothing but to just suck the pleasures out of this world in every capacity you could imagine. They're complete opposite ends. But the goal is to harness that energy from the animal soul and transcend it and transform it to use it for godly purposes, so that one achieves joy and excitement and passion for holy things. Sounds like a lofty thing, but that's the reality. That's how it will be when Mashiach comes. So the idea is that this energy, which is responsible probably for the misuse of sexuality, is arguably the biggest destruction in the entire world. You could just go through history, and I mean, countries have been overtorn. Wars have started over sexual impropriety between a king and his queen, between someone. Call it cheating, however you want to call it in today's languages, but there's so much energy behind the masculine and feminine energy. Every religion, every spiritual practice, just look at it's the yin yang, the black and white balance. It's all masculine, feminine, sexual, powerful energy, and the goal is to channel these energies together to reach very, very high spiritual states, and that's ultimately, according to Kabbalah, the main reason why a husband and a wife have relations, not to bring children into the world, but to transcend this world and bring their souls back together to connect with God and reach very, very high states of ecstasy and spiritual realms. If anyone has ever done MDMA or ecstasy, which I used to do quite a lot of in my previous states of life, it's releasing a lot of that same energy that we strive for in a proper way, in a spiritual and a holy way. The MDMA releases a lot of dopamine, and it comes in a large shot, and that's why when you're under the influence of some of these things, it's like, oh, you feel so good in your body, but then you crash really, really hard afterwards, because your body's not meant to have that much energy released in that short period of time. So it's basically laws of gravity. Anything that goes up very fast crashes very fast right afterwards. So the goal is to build up your body and your soul in stages like this. And this energy really is the energy, the seed of a man and a woman coming together is not just about bringing physical children into the world. Anytime we express ourselves, anytime we speak, anytime we do art, make a vision board, any creative thing that we do in this world is sexual energy. It's sexual energy is, I want to share myself, what I have, with another person, with the world, which is why, and I'm talking to women, but it's applies across the board. Often when people have relations and it's under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or didn't want to do it, made a mistake, whatever, everyone's whatever, save that for another discussion. But during the process, wonderful. The next day you feel like crap, because it's like, what did I do? Like, because you literally are giving your being. It's like part of your essence is coming out, and it's meant to be a very intimate thing that is shared with another intimate person, your husband or wife, ideally between you and God. And this energy has been just so destructively spread into the world with, I'm not here to lecture, with pornography and all these horrible things, but it's horrible. This is like the worst horrific. That's why God destroyed the world, by the way. The flood came in Noah. God's anger from the world was because of sexual immorality. They were having sex with animals. There was you can't even imagine what was going on. But it was mostly based on sexual energy. And we just finished Parshas Noach last week. And what's interesting is the rainbow is a sign that God wants to destroy the world. Anytime you see a rainbow, you're not supposed to say to someone, oh, look at the beautiful rainbow. We all do it, but you're not supposed to, right? Because the rainbow is basically God saying, I'm pissed. And right now, I want to wipe the world off, remove it. But I'm not going to because I made a covenant. And guess who conveniently uses the rainbow as their symbol? It's not by coincidence to these things, right? So this energy is really a lofty, holy, amazing energy. And it's meant to be channeled not just during these relation periods, but of really getting in tune with our sexual energy, with how to use this energy. And again, not just with relations, but relating with the world. Every endeavor is some form of relations, albeit removed from actually physical relations. But when you're having a conversation with someone, it's a form of transfer of energy, right? When you're painting, when you're drawing, when music, like why is everyone music's like, wow, this is an energy that's coming out. It all comes from this root of this very, very powerful energy that the Sefer Yetzirah is talking about right now. Where am I in how am I in time? I'm good. Okay. Yeah. I want to do it before you start banging things and looking at me. So okay. The juxtaposition between the circumcision of the tongue and the circumcision of the membrane, which is how they relate to one another, explains the prophetic position favored by Elijah. This is really cool. The scripture states, Elijah went to the top of Har Carmel, entranced himself on the ground, and placed his face between his knees on the bottom of page 37. This is from the book of Kings. So this position was used for the intense concentration of spiritual energy. According to the Midrash, this position was used because it placed the head in conjunction with the mark of the circumcision. I think I spoke about this last time. So he would sit in a position like this, like in a sitting position. Feet would be together, hands would be together, and he would put his head down like this. So all the covenants between the toes, the member, and his fingers and his tongue were in a perfect alignment. So the energy was able to flow perfectly through. Listen how cool this is. When one is in the position of all of these forces are brought together. The 10 fingers, 10 toes, tongue, and sexual organ comprise a total of 22 elements, right? 10 in the fingers, 10 in the toes, 1 in the tongue, and 1 in the brit. 22, paralleling the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The individual's body itself thus becomes an alphabet, which they can write in the spiritual realms. That's like so crazy. Like, that's what the prophets would do. They would put their heads down like this and align all of their covenants together and channel the energy and be able to draw or write Hebrew letters in the spiritual worlds. That's how the golem was created, and literally change sequences of nature. Like there could be a decree against something or something bad that could happen, and a prophet would go, get into a prophetic state, channel this energy, and alter the letters that God was bringing down from above and change the alphabet in the spiritual realms into different wording and literally change the entire outcome of creation. It's no one thinks that's crazy. I think it's pretty. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question because it's like, how are you going against God, right? It says that Tzaddik declares and God must fulfill. So I don't know. I don't have that kind of relationship with God, but I'm sure there was situations where they only did it when they were allowed, so to speak, to do it, right? I mean, there's certain things that it's 100%, 100%, 100%, 100% to challenge him to cut in and no. It is because the covenant's built in a woman. It's already there.
I had it already made.
So they supposed to do it now.
I don't know if anyone is on that level today where they can do that.
Well,
energy healers are a whole different reality.
What do they use?
So energy healers, there's a big difference between kadosh or holiness and spirituality. You could be very spiritual and be performing things that are very against God. So only a real prophet is able to communicate with God effectively. There's energy healers. I know personally energy healers here in Israel who tell people things that are just dead wrong. And they say it with complete confidence. You have to do that, and it's just wrong. Like it literally wrong, because what energy healers are doing is they're tapping in. It's not prophecy. It's not holiness. They have special gifts, just like certain people have more intuitive gifts than other people, right? Certain people can sense energy, feel things, whatever the case may be. Some people may have, very acute hearing. Some people have great eyesight. They could see, everyone has different tools. This is not a learned behavior, although they do certain things to enhance their abilities. Certain people just have natural abilities to see beyond the physical realm, and they could see into spiritual energy. It doesn't mean that whatever they're seeing is accurate, because it's being clouded through their own self, their own personal energies. So it says when God would talk to Moshe face to face, Moshe had no individual self. So it was a pure energy, a pure pipe going through. All these energy healers, they're tapping into something and they're getting energy, but it's muffled. It's not clear. So if they're seeing a vision of something, or they're guiding someone, or they're telling someone, it could be right, but it could be wrong. Because once they've done scientific experiments just to show you the impact of a human observation, where they've literally done scientific experiments with the same scientists in rooms with different people under the exact same circumstances and got different results, because the energy of the people in that room are affecting the outcome of the scientific experiment. That's how powerful human energy is. So you have an individual now who's a healer or a spiritual seeker, whatever it is, and they're channeling energy through themselves. Is this a pure person? Is it a holy person? Are they living a godly life? Or they have their own things that are going on, right? Like you get all these self-help gurus, they're telling everyone about marriage advice and they're divorced, right? It's like very nice. So you have to kind of look at these people, and a lot of times you don't know what these people do in their private lives. You don't know the music they listen to, the words they talk about, the foods they're eating, the things they're doing. There's some been throughout history. I mean, Bilam, you have Zela Omazet. So you have, in every generation, you have holy people and you have spiritual people who have tremendous powers that are using for bad. Not that an energy healer is using for bad. I'm just giving you an extreme example. So all that energy that people see and direct is going through that person.
Right.
So, a lot of times, it's like people all the time, like they go online and they quote things. And I've read this. I'm like, well, who wrote the article? Who paid that person to write the article? What is their agenda? So it's hard to really know.
Is there a way to receive guidance from Hashem, but not in a cloudy way in this world in our lifetime?
Guidance, yes, but clear prophecy and clear nevuah, no. We all have a guiding soul inside of us. There is, every one of us, it says God speaks in a soft, quiet, still voice. God is talking to every one of us all the time.
There's so many voices. So true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's very true. So how do you isolate that voice? That's not simple, because it's confusing. I hear you very well. Sometimes you're like, where's this coming from? Right? Is it coming from the Yetzirah or the Yetzirah? Is it something good for me? Is it something bad for me? And until one goes through, the process of cleansing oneself, the more you clean yourself of unwanted energy, the better chances the good energy has a place and you're going to sense it.
I think psychedelics can help with that.
They can.
No, I think that didn't they do it like the couple?
So
What is Kabbalah's view on?
Psychedelics?
Oh wow, another.
I really have to do a class on that. But interesting enough that Aria Kaplan.
Always talking about it.
No, you ask a good question.
Because a lot
lot of the things they say are very much aligned with what somebody would say if they're on it. So I don't know if they got that out of their pure.
It's a huge debate. So Aryeh Kaplan, who is the one who gave the Perushim on this, who died at a very young age. He was I think he died at 40 years old. He was brilliant. He authored dozens and dozens of books about Kabbalah, and he has a book called Kabbalah and Meditation. And he, in the introduction, says, we have reason to believe that the sages of old times did experiment with various types of psychedelic substances to help in their channeling of energy. Who knows? We don't know. They were in a totally different reality than we are.
But then you could say they shouldn't really need it. They're so.
Right. So you don't know what it is. I mean, a lot of psychedelics are plants. They grow naturally, right? They're not man-made substance. They occur within the world. So it's hard to say. During a psychedelic experience, one can definitely see things that are beyond this realm. But it's a whole discussion because it has to be done in a proper way. And if it's done just to get high or just to kind of escape this world, and if it's done too excessively or under the wrong conditions, you could also start. I mean, I know people who've lost their mind because there's only how you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and where's it coming? You start losing reality touch of what's real, what's not real, what's so. You're all these things we're talking about are very powerful energies. There's black magic and there's white magic. There's throughout history people who have used energy, spiritual healers for good. And there's people who've taken that exact same energy and used it for destruction. So we're tapping into very, very high levels of energy. But we'll end here. But the Sefer Yetzirah is basically emphasizing the point that because we have these circumcisions, and again, everyone has it. A woman, it's baked in. A man has to do the extra step. We have the ability to channel high energies from the upper worlds and to bring lofty souls into this world and to also dance in this world, if you will, and reach the Rebbe just ends at this point. In this week's Sikha from the Nunalfan Beis Sichas, he explains that every single one of us has, I'm sure we all heard this growing up from teachers, like, you're not using your potential, you're not living up to your potential. Right? It's like, go bang your head against the wall, right? But we've all heard that. If we're honest with ourselves, and we're the best guide more than anyone, because we could seek advice and guidance from many people, but inside our kishkas and our hearts of hearts, we kind of know like what we should do. Maybe we're just afraid, or we don't want to, or it's too burdensome, or it's too scary, or it's too much responsibility. But we all have this voice that's kind of guiding us. And the Rebbe says we all have hidden potential abilities that we have not tapped into. And he said below those hidden potential abilities, there's abilities beyond our wildest imaginations that we're so disconnected from that we can't even fathom. It's like the earth. Inside the core of the earth, there's so much precious jewels and diamonds and so much oil, diamonds. How does that come? That comes from digging and excessive work to go into the earth to pull that out. It's the same thing with us. Inside of us, there's huge wellsprings of light, of power, of energy beyond our wildest capabilities. The biggest geniuses in the world use 4 or 5% of their brain capacity, right? The average person, maybe 2 or 3%. So when Mashiach comes, we'll use 100% of our brain capacity. We can't even begin to fathom what that is. Thank you, everyone. And till next week, see you. Sure.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Questions?
You can ask as much as you want.
Is white magic okay?
So it's what does okay mean? it's so broad.
No, is it? What is white?
So it's similar to spiritual healing. It's
Because I know like energy healers use white magic.
yeah, it's energy. White meaning used for good to try to help people. Black to use to harm.
So is white like okay?